Hi, my name is Alessandra Naporowski. My major is Human Development and Family Studies with an EC through 6 teaching certification. I'd love to teach kinder, first, and second. And as for subjects, I'd love to teach math and science. Those are my two favorite subjects. Growing up, though, they weren't my favorite, but luckily I had amazing teachers who showed me to love math and science through math games and science projects, and I love to do the same with my students. I know especially with math, that tends to be one of the main subjects that students tend to say that they either find boring or that they hate the subject. So I'd like to show them, just like my teachers did for me, that they can be fun. As for my language experience, I actually grew up in a bilingual household. My mom is from Mexico, so I grew up speaking Spanish and English in my house. And for the beginning part of my childhood, my grandparents from Mexico were actually living with us. So in my house, it was mostly Spanish speaking. So at home, I'd speak mostly Spanish, except for my dad, who I would speak in English. And then at school, it was mostly English. So I pretty much learned Spanish and English around at the same time, pretty much since I was a baby. As a kid, I might be the only one, but in my head, I thought everybody understood what I was saying, and I just assumed that everybody knew Spanish and English, and I guess I didn't comprehend that they were two different languages. I thought they were one, because I remember sometimes saying words to my dad in Spanish, and because he spoke Spanish too, he understood what I was saying, and I guess maybe that's where it developed from, but to people who either didn't grow up speaking Spanish or didn't know much English, they were probably confused when I would try to communicate to them. And it didn't really click that they were two different languages, or that people didn't understand everything I was saying until one time at church. My mom had done my hair in a way she would always do. But I guess for these girls, they had never seen it before, so they asked me how my mom had done my hair. And I was trying to explain to them how she did it, and instead of using the word ponytail, I was saying chongo. And chongo in Spanish means ponytail. And so I kept repeating chongo, chongo, and I remember they kept looking at me like, I don't understand what you're saying. And I was getting frustrated because I was trying to explain over and over again, and then it clicked in my head, oh, they don't know what that is. And because I've always said it in Spanish, I didn't know the word in English because there wasn't a word that I used with my dad. And so at that moment I realized, okay, not everybody understands what I say, and I need to make an effort to know simple words like this that I may need to use in a conversation, that I need to learn in English, in English, and same with words in English that I don't know in Spanish, I need to learn so that I can have a better conversation and it's not me trying to explain what I'm trying to say. And so it was good growing up bilingual, but it definitely had some frustrating moments, like the moment I had at church. As for my experience with other people speaking languages, I actually went to Italy 3 years ago for a study abroad, and Italian and Spanish have similarities between them, but you have to be careful with some of the words. So like when I was over there, I was able to pick up on some of the things that people were saying in the conversation, and I would kind of have an idea of what they were trying to say. But for example, like calzón over there is a food, and in Spanish it means underwear. So if you don't know that, you're thinking that they're saying that they want to eat underwear. So it was just things like that I experienced being in another country in a different language, that there can be that language barrier, even though the languages are similar and sometimes you can communicate a little bit. For example, like my dad's mom is actually Italian, and so when she would first met my mom's parents, they were speaking in Spanish and Italian, and that's how they would communicate. But again, there are words that don't have the same meaning that you need to be careful with how you say. And it's the same thing with Spanish. Like I remember I have a Colombian friend who I was talking to one day, and I was talking about this girl. And in Mexico, we use the word fresa as strawberry, but it also has another meaning sort of like a preppy person. And I was telling her, oh yeah, this girl's so fresa. And then I didn't know in Colombia they don't use it in the second way we use it in Mexico. So she just looked at me and started laughing, and I looked at her like, what's so funny? You know, I'm just explaining a story. And she goes, did you just call that girl Strawberry? And I said, no. I said, and I asked, do y'all not use it in this way? And I explained to her how we use it. And she goes, no, we don't use it that way. So I've just learned throughout my experience of speaking Spanish and English, and of speaking with people who also speak Spanish, and speaking to people who speak maybe another language who is similar to Spanish, or maybe even similar to English, how there can be that language barrier of a misinterpretation of things or miscommunication. But at the same time, I think it's beautiful how we get to learn from each other, you know, like just like I learned from my friend that they just use fresa as strawberry, or with and being in Italy, I learned different words that are, or words that are similar that have different meanings. So I think that's the beauty of languages, is you get to communicate with people and you get to learn at the same time and experience their culture. So that's my experience with languages.